Thank you, Madam Ambassador, for that very warm introduction. We all know Rosa Jalal as a rare combination of beauty and brains. And today you saw that with the beauty and brains is also a very warm heart. She began to introduce me by reading a poem of mine dedicated to my mother and could not read it because of the emotion. She was thinking of her own mother. So in spite of all the great success she's had in the world, she still retains a beautiful heart. I would like to thank her for inviting me. We are all followers of her in this very important mission. I would like to thank all of you, each one of you, because again, Rosa is the perfect hostess. She has arranged the most beautiful gathering, most beautiful women of Washington, D.C., and on a day which is probably one of the most beautiful days of this season. It's a perfect combination. I would like to really congratulate you for this very important task that you have before you, which is to improve the understanding of your own communities, that's the Muslim communities, with the non-Muslim communities of the United States of America. And let me now plunge straight into my talk. Let me start by asking you a question. You're all intelligent ladies, and of course with the exception of my son, I think he's the only gentleman here, Babar. Babar is a filmmaker, so I requested him to join us so he can keep me company so I don't feel too intimidated. Let me ask you a question. How many of you have heard of Afia Siddiqui? If you have heard of her, put your hands up, please. Afia Siddiqui, you've heard of her? Who else? Just one person has heard of Afia Siddiqui. Who has heard, two or three over there, so three or four in this very distinguished audience. How many of you have heard of Yan Hirsi Ali? How many? Put your hands up, please. So a few more. Now, none of you have heard of Yan Hirsi Ali? Well, please remember these two names because this is going to be the focus of my talk. Yan Hirsi Ali is originally from Somalia. Afia Siddiqui is originally from Pakistan. Okay? Remember the two countries. Hirsi Ali moves to Kenya with her family, then to Saudi Arabia, then to Holland, and then to the United States. In the United States, she is a celebrity. She has been called one of the most influential people on this planet by Time magazine. One of the 100 most influential. She is widely recognized in the media, and she's married to the famous historian Professor Ferguson at Harvard, who dedicated a book to his wife. Her thesis is, and I'm quoting her now, that Islam is a destructive, nihilistic cult of death. Now, as opposed to her, Afia Siddiqui grows up in Pakistan, comes to the United States, MIT in Boston, gets a PhD, and then goes back and joins the war against the United States. And ends up being captured in Afghanistan and brought to the United States, tried and sentenced for 86 years, where she is now serving a sentence in prison. Now you see what I've done for you. I've created two models. And recently, last weekend, you may have seen C-SPAN book notes. I interviewed an author called Deborah Scroggins, who's written a book on these two. The book is called Wanted Women. And she takes the lives of these two Muslim women. Hirsi Ali, by the way, is no longer Muslim because she says Islam is an evil system and religion, and I reject it. I have nothing to do with Islam. It should be abolished. Afia Siddiqui fights for Islam and lands up in jail. So this book focused on these two women, and I had the privilege of interviewing her for C-SPAN, and that interview was broadcast 3 times over the weekend and will be broadcast again this Sunday. So if you are free that evening, look out for the interview. It's called Book Notes C-SPAN. Now, I asked her this question. I said, most Americans are really curious about Islam, as you know. They want to know about Islam. They're confused about Islam. They see Islam as a very controversial religion. Someone says one thing, someone says something else. Muslims say we are a religion of peace, as Rosa says all the time. But how many Americans really believe that? They point to the events on 9/11. They point to the events happening in the Muslim world. They point to events in Syria, where Muslims are killing Muslims. A Muslim army, tanks, helicopters, is shooting to death ordinary civilians, women, children. We see it on our television screens. So how can you then say Islam is a religion of peace? These are the questions they have. So when Americans read a book like this is the question I asked Deborah Scroggin, the author, they're going to see 2 poles of Islam. One, a Muslim woman who rejects Islam, who says, I want nothing to do with Islam. And the other woman who says, I'm going to fight for Islam and I may even have to be violent on the cause of Islam. So where is the middle pole of this tent? If the Muslim world is a tent, a big tent, you have pointed out 2 extreme poles. Where's the pole in the middle? That is missing. That pole is you. That pole is mainstream Muslim women. And I pointed out these Muslim women in the middle. Thousands and thousands of women like you, who symbolize Islam, and you balance modernity and you balance tradition. That is Islam. I pointed out there have been Muslim women leaders like Benazir Bhutto, who became Prime Minister twice, the Prime Ministers of Bangladesh, the President of Indonesia, and thousands of women who are women leaders in their own right, who are also Muslim. Now, by not seeing this, there is a danger in America of just seeing the 2 poles. And that, in a sense, is your challenge. The challenge of your wonderful association, which I applaud and congratulate. That is your challenge. Your challenge is to engage in the debate with America on a serious level, on a high level, on an intellectual level. The American people are probably the most literate, curious and open people on this planet. It's an open democratic society. So they may have some strange ideas about Islam, but if you engage with them, you talk to them, they're prepared to change them because they're open about new ideas. The challenge is to present the ideas out there in a meaningful way. Now, I'm mentioning this because it's been over 10 years since 9/11. And 10 years later, my impression is that the questions that remained about Islam, which came out straight after 9/11, why do they hate us? Why do Muslims hate us? Why do Muslims treat women so badly? Where are the moderates in Islam? These questions have been asked again and again and again, and they're still being asked. Because they're being asked, there's a failure somewhere. And that is your challenge. As Muslim leaders with their non-Muslim friends, and I'm delighted there's so many non-Muslims here today, the challenge is to bridge this gap. Why is it important to Americans? And let me address the Americans in the audience. Americans cannot, and Mary, I hope you'll pass this on to your husband, Americans cannot divorce the knowledge of Islam from the world they live in. The luxury of being isolated on this continent is over. And think about it. Today, you have hundreds of thousands of American troops. Even today, Afghanistan, still in Iraq, engagement with Pakistan, with Somalia, with the Philippines, literally across the world. Muslims constitute 1.5 billion people on this planet. That means 1 out of 4 people on this planet are Muslim. Indonesia, as we know, is the largest Muslim nation. And Islam will be, whether you like it or you don't like it, you love it or you hate it, Islam will be there as a player. And because the world is changing all the time, already you're seeing the world change. There are new powers emerging, new giants emerging, China is emerging. Russia is beginning to sound very aggressive and threatening. Already Russia is challenging the West in certain ways. India is emerging as a major power. Because of this new world that is emerging into the next decade, the United States will have to be very, very diplomatic in realigning its position on the world stage. The United States of 2001 and the United States of this next round, whoever the President of the United States will be a very different United States. The old answers will no longer do. And the relationship with Islam becomes crucial. The United States cannot just go marching in and taking over other countries and sending in armies because there is no more money left. The United States is in trillions of dollars of debt. Trillions of dollars. People are fed up of the war. Afghanistan is the longest war in American history. And Americans, as I said, want to know about Islam. And this is where you come in. This is where you fill the gap in knowledge. And if you succeed, you're able to narrow the gap between Muslims and non-Muslims in the United States. I have been, since 9/11, literally the next day, on the road non-stop in this exercise. I have been to campuses and think tanks and the Pentagon and the White House and State Department and all over the United States promoting dialogue between Jews, Muslims, Christians and Hindus and Buddhists. This has been almost a mission for me for the last decade. And my closest supporters and friends in Washington is the senior rabbi of the Washington Hebrew congregation, Bruce Lustig, and the former bishop, Bishop John Chain, who's just left at the National Cathedral. And the three of us did many, many, many Abrahamic movements and initiatives together. And all three of us felt, after 10 years, that there's a long way still to go. A long way to go. And you can help fill that gap. It's the women who must now enter the field and take the field. And I'm delighted that your organization is conscious of it and aiming in that direction. The reason I think it's so crucial is because the question about women is a very important question for America. America is an open society, a democratic society. Women play a critical role in the United States. Although, Maria, I'm noticing you still don't have a female president. So Indonesia is way ahead of you in that way.
It'll come.
Soon, I hope. Women play a critical role and will continue to play a critical role. And I'm asked all the time, on different campuses and different audiences, I'm sure you are also, why does Islam treat women badly? Now, Muslims know the answers. Let me, for the sake of the non-Muslims, put on record some matters. And please remember this. Please remember this because I am now quoting text and scholarship. Number one, there are many things we associate with Islam which is not Islam. For example, female circumcision. That is not Islam. That is a tribal custom which is practiced by Muslim tribes, not Islam. Honor killings, not Islam. One of the reasons Hirsi Ali, growing up in Somalia, rejected Islam was this. She said, what sort of Islam is this? Female circumcision, honor killings, it's a terrible religion. I can understand that. She's growing up in an environment where there is so many non-Muslim things happening. Again, lack of knowledge of our own men in our societies, Muslim societies, where they can just go and kill a woman and say, this is an honor killing. We do that. Muslim men do that. The saying that Rosa quoted, paradise lies at the feet of the mother. Now this is the Prophet of Islam. 3 times a Muslim went to the Prophet and asked him, which is the shortcut to paradise? And Muslims, because they always like shortcuts, came back 3 times. The 3rd time he said, which is the shortcut? Forget the mother. And the Prophet said, the feet of the mother. Now this is a metaphor. It's a metaphor. because it means that you must love and respect and look after the women in your family. They are the family. They carry one generation to the next. Now here is the challenge for you as mothers, as sisters, as wives. Do you know what's going on in the Muslim world? Think of the women in Libya, in Tunisia, Indonesia, in Syria today. Think of the challenges they face. Think of the challenges they face in just surviving. Tanks, helicopters, torture, secret police. They have sons, they have husbands. And they have to hold on to their culture and tradition and pass it on. The real heroines of the world today are the Muslim women out there in the field, challenging the situation around them. They are the real heroines. And we must salute them and pray that they succeed. Because if they fail, that society will fail. Because they will not be able to carry on the traditions and the fine points of their traditions to the next generation. And these are the traditions that Islam gives them. In the 7th century, Islam gives them the right to own property. 7th century. Comes to the West a millennium later, if that. Islam gives them rights to run businesses. Islam gives them the right to initiate divorce. Now this is incredible for the 7th century. And these are all legal rights that women have. So the notion that Muslim women are somehow second-rate citizens is simply not correct. And let me tell you that I have been brought up by a wonderful mother like Rosa when she mentioned her mother, she couldn't keep her tears back, a wonderful wife, wonderful daughters. And the idea that somehow Muslim women are submissive or take a back seat, when I think of my mother, and sometimes she had a strong right hand when she was not happy with what we were doing. In our culture, sometimes we tend to be a little bit physical and express it in that way. My wife was a very strong educated woman, educated at the convent of Jesus and Mary in Pakistan, where Benazir Bhutto was educated. And my daughters, one with a PhD at Cambridge University, became the first director of the only Jewish Muslim center in the world. The other daughter at Georgetown. I am proud of them. I feel that here are these wonderful women who are balancing their tradition and their culture and their faith. And I don't have to tell them anything. I have to learn from them and be inspired by them. So this is the challenge you're facing. How to hold on to yourselves and communicate it to your American friends. Because it is this challenge that each one of us faces. And it was in this spirit that I traveled first to the Muslim world, and I took some of my wonderful American students with me. We went to the Muslim world, the Middle East, South Asia, Far East Asia. We went to Indonesia. And I wrote a book called Journey into Islam. But I realized that that was half the story. The story was not complete. I had to also travel in the United States. And we did. The whole team traveled with me. We went to 75 cities. We visited 100 mosques. It's the most detailed study of Muslims in America and the challenges they faced. But what I did was, I began to read on American history because I realized unless I understood America and American culture, American society, I couldn't really project the Muslim community and its problems. So it's that interaction you see throughout the book, the interaction between American society and the Muslim community. And again, that's a challenge for you, Muslim ladies especially. We are in this great country. We need to understand it. We need to appreciate it. We need to look at the great traditions of this country and salute it. Because one of the images in the book, 2 images I'll share with you. And I'm delighted to see Jan Duplan joining us at the back there. Jan, there you are. The 2 images I have for you, especially Muslim ladies from the Muslim world. This is America. An image of Thomas Jefferson. Now you know who Thomas Jefferson is, right? Put up your hands. Well done, you all passed. I was getting worried. So Thomas Jefferson, one of the greatest of all Americans, one of the greatest presidents, the author of the Declaration and the Constitution, which are such remarkable documents. There's a statue of Thomas Jefferson. And I'm sorry to say that so many Americans have not seen that statue. Just outside his university, the University of Virginia, which he created. So it's a statue. Murray, have you seen the statue? What does it say? There you are. Not good enough, Murray. As an American, you need to be proud of that statue. Because that statue has an angel holding a tablet. And that tablet says, and this is something worth remembering, 1786, religious freedom. This is on the tablet, the angel's holding it. And it says, God, the God of Christianity, Jehovah, the God of Judaism, Allah, the God of Islam. Think of it, in 1786. And look at the rest of the world. Their kings and their dynasties and their despots. And here in the United States of America, Americans are creating a new kind of society, with a new vision for society. And that is Thomas Jefferson's tablet for American society. And then, what shocked me was the next thing. After Allah, they've got Brahma, Atma. He's talking about Hinduism, not just the Abrahamic faith. This is the American vision. In essence, it is pluralist. It is welcoming. This is a new society, a new country. Everyone's welcome. Abide by the rules, abide by the law, and join the American table. That is extraordinary. The second image I have for you, and Murray, you won't mind this is a democratic example from the Democrats. An example from Jackie Kennedy. Jackie Kennedy is visiting Pakistan. Now, you know, relations between the United States and Pakistan, who are supposed to be two really close allies, is very, very rocky right now. It's rock bottom. We don't know where it will take us. And we think that America and Pakistan can never be friends. The image I have in my book, and I've got a picture there, is Jackie Kennedy, this beautiful, elegant lady, standing alongside the President of Pakistan in an open car in Lahore, with thousands of Muslims, men and women, throwing flower petals at her and smiling. And from Lahore she goes to the Khyber Pass, the tribal areas. And think of it, the tribal areas where the Taliban today will not permit even the Pakistan army to have peace there. And Jackie Kennedy is welcomed by the tribal chiefs. So think of that image. An American lady, the Pakistanis falling in love with her. The same Pakistanis today in this very difficult relationship with America. And ask yourselves, what happened? How could we be so loved by one generation and then so hated by another generation? And that is our challenge. To be able to bridge the gaps, the hatred, the ignorance. And it can be done. The message I'm giving you through these images is that it can be done. And if any of you have any doubt in your mission to improve understanding, Americans and non-Americans, I would urge you to go back to the founding fathers of the United States. And I would really urge Americans to read a bit more on their own founding fathers. Because when I hear the debates in America today, when I see this very unpleasant relationship between the two main parties, I'm surprised because this is the oldest democracy in the world. The whole world is watching the United States and expects the highest standards of democratic debate, interchanges, and relationships and friendships. The founding fathers are talking at the end of the 18th century. And several of them mention Islam. And this will come to you as a surprise. It's in my book with all the references. Benjamin Franklin calls the Prophet of Islam, Benjamin Franklin, a model of compassion. Think of it. Today, you see the Prophet of Islam in the kind of image he has in the media. And yet here's Benjamin Franklin. Bless you. You must be models of compassion. Adams calls the Prophet of Islam one of the greatest lawgivers of all time, of all history. And Thomas Jefferson owned, as we know, a copy of the Quran, and was probably the first American president to have an iftar at the White House. And it was for the Tunisian ambassador, I believe.
Oh.
So there you are. You have a tradition which you have established in the United States. So, and Washington, of course, is extraordinary. I mean, he's the founding father par excellence. He's reaching out to the Jews. He's reaching out to the Muslims. He's reaching out to the Native Americans. He's reaching out to the African Americans. These are extraordinary men. It is their spirit that enters the Constitution. And that is the greatest gift of the United States of America. And that is something that every American needs to preserve. And when you chip away at it, you chip away not only at the time in which you live, you chip away at the very identity of America itself. So in some senses, wonderful ladies and gentlemen, Baba, that's you, the challenge of Islam, the debate about Islamic identity is more than just about Islamic identity. It really is a debate about America today. And that is why it's a more complex and more important debate than we assume it is. And that is why our discussions and our dialogue needs to be based in research, in knowledge, and with a genuine appreciation of each other. Without that, we cannot move forward. We cannot talk to each other in a spirit of putting the other person or the other side down. That won't do in today's world. It's the 21st century. The vision of the Founding Fathers demands egalitarianism, tolerance, friendship, and above all, pluralism. Thank you so much. Thank you.